I beseech my colleagues, I will read any book, any magazine, any speech you've given that you want me to read. Read this report and come back and tell me if you think Donald Trump did the right thing in converting the White House into a for-profit operation. No other president in American history has come anywhere close. And you ask why he's so determined to stay in office that he would unleash violence against his own vice president, the brother of your colleague, of our colleague. Why would he do that? It's because it was a money-making operation, and it was a great business grift for a guy who went bankrupt several times. And yet, out of some misguided partisan loyalty, you're going to stick with him. I don't even know why you stick with him. He was a Democrat longer than he was a Republican. He wanted to run for president on the Reform Party. You guys have been taken over by an absolute con man. And now you're acting like members of a religious cult who don't even remember how you got in the first place. We say return the profits, Donald Trump. $7.8 million. I've got a letter, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to share with you telling Donald Trump to return these $7.8 million. It's a small fraction of what he raked in. We want to know about the other 2 years in office. We want to know about the other businesses, not just those 4 that we were able to get information on. And we want to know about every country on earth, not just the 20 autocracies and dictatorships that we found. This is our government. This is our Constitution. And we're going to stand up for it against Donald Trump and anybody who follows him to the path of oblivion. Abraham Lincoln started your party as a third party to replace the Whigs because they wouldn't take a moral stand against slavery. It was a pro-freedom, anti-slavery, pro-union, pro-honesty party. And your party has been reduced to a corrupt, authoritarian cult of personality. And everybody does whatever Donald Trump tells them to do, which is what we're doing here today with this stupid attempt to hold Hunter Biden in contempt when he has come forward to say he will testify and give you everything you want, as the chairman of the committee repeatedly offered in public. So forgive my outrage and indignation, but enough is enough. Let's get back to the business of the people, as Ms.
Chair
Brown
recognizes
said.
Mr. Higgins for 5 minutes.
What kind of snowflake is Donald Trump that he's willing to send hundreds and hundreds of other people to go and do his battle and to attack police officers with Trump flags and Confederate battle flags and turn American flags into weapons? And he's very happy to do that, and he won't even come and explain himself.
The committee believes that more than sufficient evidence exists for a criminal referral of former President Trump for assisting or aiding and comforting those at the Capitol who engaged in a violent attack on the United States. Nothing could be a greater betrayal of this duty than to assist in insurrection against the constitutional order. President Trump and his allies not only spread medical disinformation about quack medical cures like hydroxychloroquine and injecting yourself with bleach, but they lied to the American people very explicitly for their own political benefit. And if Donald Trump's apologists are really worried about plummeting confidence in government and in public health, they should look at the lies and the serial manipulation of the facts that were engineered by Donald Trump and his administration in their spectacularly failed response to COVID-19. I was watching President Trump's town hall meeting on CNN last week, and I saw 2 remarkable things that clarified, in my mind, what's happening here.
Could kill the baby in the 9th month or after the baby was born. Did finish the wall. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in 1 day, 24 hours. He had boxes sent to Chinatown, where they don't speak even English in that Chinatown we're talking about.
First, I saw Donald Trump blame Vice President Pence for failing to steal the election for him on January 6th. As Trump emphasized on January 6th, he believed, and he continues to believe, that Pence did not have, quote, the courage to do what needed to be done. Moreover, Trump assured his cult followers that Pence was never in any danger from the invading mob chanting "Hang Mike Pence," and all the violence was Pence's own fault for not succumbing to Trump and becoming the first vice president in our history to step outside of his constitutional role and declare the president the winner against the actual Electoral College vote. But we also saw Trump castigate and blame Jean Carroll, the woman he sexually abused in a department store and later lied about and defamed. Trump called her a whack job and asked what kind of woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room. You see, he thinks it's her fault that he sexually abused her. And watching these two glaring cases of the GOP frontrunner for the presidential nomination in 2024 blaming the victim for his crime made me see what's happening with these hearings on Washington. They're part of an effort to deny Americans who live in Washington the right to participate in representative government, and then to blame them for their own disenfranchisement and their own lack of representation in Congress. After 11 months of this, no one can tell us what President Biden's crime was, much less where it happened, when it happened, what the motive was, who the perpetrators were, or who the victims were. Maybe the funniest thing I've ever seen in Congress was yesterday in the Rules Committee when Congressman Neguse kept asking Congressman Reschenthaler what the crime was.
What is the specific constitutional crime that you're investigating?
Well, we're having an inquiry, so we can do an investigation and control the production of witnesses.
And what is the crime you're investigating?
And documents. High crimes, misdemeanors, and bribery.
What high crime and misdemeanor are you investigating?
Look, I will, once I get time, I will explain what we're looking at, and I will make the equivalency.
No, I'm just asking you for
the last impeachment.
Now, Neguse, of course, was involved in a real impeachment investigation of a real presidential offense, the incitement of a violent political insurrection against this Congress, against the Vice President of the United States, against the Constitution, and against the election of 2020. We did not need Sherlock Holmes and a magnifying glass to find the presidential crime with Donald Trump. It came right into this House and smashed us in the face. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Today our colleagues are using their first full committee hearing of the year to distract from the depressing reality that they failed to bring forward even a single piece of serious bipartisan legislation, much less a bipartisan bill to improve our immigration system and confront our major challenges on the southern border. The 118th Congress is shaping up to be one of the most unproductive in American history, with only 34 bills signed into law in 2023, a small fraction of the number typically enacted in a year. They simply have no program for America and just operate at the beck and call of Donald Trump. So with no positive program on infrastructure, healthcare, education, or anything else to run on, the do-nothing MAGA Republicans are hoping that simply demagoguing the issue of immigration, while not addressing it in any serious way, will be their ticket back to the White House. Then Trump can resume the real work that he wants to accomplish, pocketing for himself and his family tens of millions or billions of dollars from foreign governments like Communist China and the murderous monarchs of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, and so on. In October of 2022, the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus, led by Chairman Clyburn, which I served on, uncovered a deliberate campaign by the then leader of the free world, former President Trump, and his associates to distort and politicize the CDC's COVID-19 public health response before the 2020 presidential election. This disinformation strategy is best described by Trump's own political appointees. President Trump's COVID-19 coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, who has famously told America that the Trump administration could have prevented hundreds of thousands of deaths from COVID had it acted effectively to address the epidemic, stated that Dr. Scott Atlas, another Trump appointee, quote, was overtly mixing public health with politics by advocating the idea that case identification is bad for the president's reelection. Dr. Paul Alexander, a Trump appointee, former senior policy advisor in CDC's Office of Public Affairs, said this: here's the issue. If the communication is left with just the statement that minority groups, sick, are at higher risk than on its face, this is very accurate. However, in this election cycle, that is the kind of statement coming from CDC that the media and Democrat antagonists will use against the president. Each time we talk about these deaths, we need to tell the nation why these deaths happened. This was due to decades of Democrat neglect. In discussing the importance of getting accurate scientific information about COVID out to the people from CDC, Dr. Martin Setron, director of the Division of Global Migration and Quarantine, told the Senate, the Select Subcommittee during a transcribed interview, quote, there are people no longer with us that would have benefited from that kind of very clear messaging. The whole judicial system is based on the difference between truth and lies. In fact, the administrative system. You want to get Social Security, either you're 65 or you're not. That's a matter of positive fact. You qualify for Medicare or you don't. Truth or fact. Yes, our system operates on the basis of truth or fact. Don't throw up your hands and say, oh, well, we can't know what the truth is. We can't know what lies are. We don't want bureaucrats telling us what that is. That's what democratic government is. That's how we operate, by our commitment to the truth. And that's why we all swear an oath here to uphold the Constitution. That's why people go to court and they swear an oath to tell the truth. Now, they take their shocking nihilism about what's true and what's false, and they convert it to this entire Congress. And it all starts, of course, with January 6th. And before that, the presidential election. All starts with a big lie. Donald Trump's big lie. Well, they say, well, who knows? Maybe he won, maybe he didn't. You say Joe Biden's president, we say Donald Trump's president. Nonsense. 60 federal and state courts rejected every claim of electoral fraud and corruption that they put forward. 60 federal and state courts rejected every claim. They don't have a single court that ever ruled in their favor. Donald Trump lost that election by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. So then their big lie now has to stretch all the way over January 6th. We have to disbelieve the evidence of our own eyes, of our own ears. We saw them come and descend upon this chamber, this Congress, wounding and injuring 150 of our police officers, breaking people's noses, breaking people's fingers, putting people in the hospital. And already they're back on the news with big lies saying, no, 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 it was a tourist visit. Like these real tourists up here who have to come and watch representatives in the United States Congress say there's no difference between truth and lies. Real tourists who are not beating the daylights out of our police officers. Now, so the lie now extends to January 6th. Who knows what really happened? Yeah, we all saw it. We saw the Vice President of the United States getting chased out of the chamber with people yelling, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence." We had a bipartisan committee for a year and a half with more than 1,000 witnesses, 100 subpoena witnesses under oath, most of them from the Trump White House, and the Trump family and Republicans testify about Trump's plan to overturn the presidential election and get Pence just to install him in office, and yet they're agnostic about, well, the truth and lies. Who knows what really happened? Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Why are we here, colleagues? Well, between January of 2017 and January of 2021, we suffered the most lawless presidency of our lifetime. It began by Donald Trump saying that he would keep his more than 500 businesses going. That's right, and he wouldn't divest himself of any of those businesses, and he would not adopt a rule in honor of the Emoluments Clause, consistent with the Emoluments Clause, declining to take money from Saudi Arabia, China, United Arab Emirates, and so on. And then he proceeded, as we've learned, to collect at least $7.8 million from foreign governments, and that's actually a tiny fraction of what he got, because that was only for the first 2 years before the chairman, in his wisdom, decided to tell Mazars to stop complying with the judicial court order. And so that was all we got, was 2 years for 4 businesses out of more than 500. And that was just for 20 countries out of 195 countries on earth. But the lawlessness lasted up until yesterday, when Donald Trump's lawyer got up before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and asserted that President Trump, or any other president for that matter, has a right to order assassinations of his political opponents and not be prosecuted for it unless he's impeached and convicted first, which is completely at odds with the text of the Constitution, the history of the Constitution. But he asserted a right to assassinate other citizens unless first he's
impeached or convicted, which means all you got to do is kill your political opponents and then kill enough of your political opponents in the House and Senate to keep yourself from being impeached or convicted. My friends, please don't look at your phones and papers right now. This goes to the heart of the republic. Take a position on it. Even if you're going to support it, take a position on it. Don't stick your heads in the sand. Donald Trump is doing this to our country. He's asserting the right of the president to murder people and not be prosecuted for it. Well, so why are we here? Well, Donald Trump insisted to numerous Republicans and in public and on Twitter and on Truth Social that Joe Biden be impeached. Why? Well, because Donald Trump was impeached twice. The last time for inciting a violent insurrection against his own vice president, against the Congress of the United States to overthrow an election. And if you don't believe that, you've got to tell me that if Mike Pence had buckled under to weeks and months of pressure, that Donald Trump would have said, oh no, I was just kidding. I'm not actually going to seize the presidency. Come on, if you believe that, you're too innocent to be let out of the house by yourself. So anyway, Donald Trump says, I don't want to be the only one running for president who's been impeached. Impeach Joe Biden. Figure out something. We were here for a year. You guys did not lay a glove on Joe Biden. You don't have a single credible piece of evidence, not one iota, showing any crime by Joe Biden. As Mr. Lynch says, even your own witnesses came up and said they didn't see it at the one hearing that you had on impeachment. So why are we here? Well, we can't go after Joe Biden. He's clean. Let's go after Hunter Biden. Let's go get him. And that's why I'm so suspicious of where we are today, Mr. Chairman, because I heard you numerous times say, come before the committee, come and testify before the world, come and tell everybody what happened. And he took you up on it, and he said yes. And I said, finally, we'll get to hear from Hunter Biden. We'll get to hear answers to all those questions Mr. Fallon posed. But then you wouldn't take yes for an answer. You said, no, we want to go to a back room and do it there, and then we will leak out appropriate details, which of course we have seen has allowed for radical distortions of people's testimony before this committee. You have not released the vast majority of transcribed interviews that have been in the back room so we can leak out specific details. So that's not right. That's why we have questions about it. But I'm with Ms. Mace. Let's bring them all in. Let's bring in all the Republicans who still haven't testified about what they know about what happened on January 6th, and let's bring Hunter Biden in. Let's do that all together. I'd be for that. And thank you for yielding, Mr. Tlaib, and I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Langworthy for 5 minutes.
One of our colleagues said that there was Trump derangement syndrome, and of course Trump derangement begins with Donald Trump himself. He thinks he has a legal right to assassinate U.S. citizens. He thinks he can grab women by their genitals, although that's not the word that he used. He said that if Joe Biden is reelected president, there will be World War II. He is obviously deranged and disoriented. But the real Trump derangement syndrome that I see is those people who cannot break from Donald Trump after he's proven himself to be completely and totally unworthy of your support. Because I'm looking at talented, gifted people on the other side of the aisle, the ones who have not left Congress in frustration or because they've broken with Donald Trump and clashed with him. But I'm still looking at people who have their wits about them, I think, but you're acting like cult members, like you're sleeping on the basement of a cult, listening to tapes all night, and I beg you to get over your Trump derangement syndrome. Thank you very much for yielding, Ms. Brown.
Chair recognizes Mr. Donalds from Florida for 5 minutes.
And one of the first things that the House did after the vote of an impeachment inquiry was to subpoena Hunter Biden to appear. Hunter Biden has evaded that subpoena. So flagrantly did he evade it that he decided to show up at the Senate side to give a press conference, and Eric Swalwell, a member of the House, helped him get that time on the Senate side to give a press conference. That's a flagrant violation of a congressional subpoena. Secondarily, he has the gall to show up here when we're actually discussing contempt. And he didn't stay. He was sitting right over there. He's not here now. He said he wants to talk. He could have stayed through the whole proceeding. He chose to leave. That's his business. But he was subpoenaed to come here. Back in December, he chose not to of his own volition. He's in violation of that subpoena, a subpoena that was executed with the signature of the clerk of the House of Representatives. That is the document that is binding. That's what we work off of. I want the minority to understand one very important distinction between Presidents Biden and President Trump. President Trump has an international real estate portfolio that he has amassed over decades. I'm quite sure if you go back through all of the hotel receipts before he was president of the United States, that you had foreign dignitaries staying at Trump hotels all across the world.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'm not going to yield, Mr. Raskin. I'm making a point because they're actually very nice hotels. They look good. People like staying there. President Trump was not running the Trump Organization when he was president of the United States. To my recollection, Eric Trump, the president's son, was actually running the Trump Organization when President Trump was president of the United States. So if he had a portfolio of hotels and people choose, through Expedia, through Kayak, through Hotels.com, if they choose to go and stay there, how is that the president being in violation of what the emoluments clause? That's what you're citing? Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, America, this is ridiculous. The Biden family has no business. They've never had a business except for politics.
I need to correct the record because of several false statements made about the Foreign Emoluments Clause, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, although I do appreciate the gentleman from Florida's attempt to at least engage on the matter of substance that was raised so powerfully by Ms. Crockett. Now let's start with this. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 says that neither the president nor any member of Congress can receive a present, an emolument, which means a payment, an office or a title from a prince, a king, a foreign government, quote, Mr. Donald, of any kind whatever, without going to Congress first and obtaining the consent of Congress. There's no hotel exception, Mr. Donald, to the Foreign Emoluments Clause. There's no international real estate syndicate exception to the Foreign Emoluments Clause, Mr. Donald. And also, I will take you up on your challenge to see whether the Trump Hotel in Washington, the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, the Trump Hotel on Fifth Avenue, the Trump Hotel at UN Plaza, the four of the more than 500 businesses that we got documentation for, whether they actually had the same level of business coming from Saudi Arabia, the communist bureaucrats of China, who were the leading spender, as you know, if you've read our report, the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, India, Egypt, and so on. We will make that comparison about what was done before if you get the chairman to call off the ban on further documents coming from Mazars. So
have you ever stayed at a Trump hotel, Mr. Raskin?
Excuse no, and I never would stay at a Trump hotel. I've got too much self-respect and concern for
hotels.
hygiene. So, but in any event, Mr. Donald, you're totally wrong about what the Foreign Emoluments Clause stands for. Abraham Lincoln was given 2 elephant tusks by the king of Siam during the Civil War, and he liked them very much. He wanted to keep them, but he went to Congress, which is what every other president did before and every president did since, right up until Donald Trump, and he asked whether he could keep the tusks, and Congress, though they loved Honest Abe, said, no, you can't keep them. I mean, John F. Kennedy was offered citizenship by the people of Ireland because they loved him so much, and he refused to take it, saying that even though it didn't violate the letter of the Emoluments Clause, it violated the spirit of the Emoluments Clause. And Donald Trump converted the presidency into an instrument for self-enrichment. He raked in millions of dollars from the most corrupt governments on earth, who came in with specific favors that we document in our report that they got from Donald Trump.